You're listening to the 12th Man Fan Jam on the Seahawk Positivity YouTube channel.
Playoffs? Don't talk about playoffs. You kidding me? Playoffs?
And now it's time for another edition of the 12th Man Fan Jam with your host, the Reverend Moses of the St. Paul Allen Church of Seahawk Positivity.
Yes, thank you again, Magic Voice of the 12th Man Fan Jam, and welcome one and all for a special playoff edition of the 12th Man Fan Jam. I'm your host for the program, the self-appointed Reverend Moses of the St. Paul Allen Church of Seahawk Positivity, and we want to thank you so much for making us part of your Seahawk pregame fix this week as we anxiously await for your 2013 NFC Western Division champion Seattle Seahawks host the New Orleans Saints this Saturday in Seattle. So sit back, grab a desired beverage and city of your choice, and remember, we dat, baby. We dat. We have so much to discuss on the program for you, and luckily I'm never alone. No, the 12th Man Fan Jam posse is here from around the world to light our way along the festivities with a virtual Mardi Gras of fun and information. First, my partner in crime, the yin to my yang. He is no saint. Direct from merry old England, you may know him as Suffolk Blue on SeahawkBlue.com. We know him as Matt.
Hello. Good morning. How are we?
We're wonderful, Matt. How are we?
Well, it's great. It's game day here because I get it before you guys. So I'm already loving the game day vibe.
It is beautiful out over there, isn't it?
Mm-hmm. It's warm. Yeah, it's in the 50s, 60s.
Yeah, you had to throw that in, didn't you?
Yeah.
Yeah, of course. All right. Thank you very much for that. We also have our news hound. You can find his weekly Seahawk editorial. 12th Man editorials are featured every week on SeahawksSouth.com. You know him as Shadowhawk on Seahawks.net. From Washington State, we know him as Will.
Good evening. Happy playoffs eve to you all.
Happy playoffs eve. Well, what's the atmosphere out there real quick in Seattle right now?
Absolutely insane.
Yes.
Everybody's got Seahawk stuff on. Everybody's got flags. Everybody's got towels. You name it. Everything's Seahawks today.
I love it. We only hope to add to the insanity here on this program for you. And tonight, we also have, from the state of California, our own numbers man, the guy that crunches the vital information into understandable pieces of useful data, our own Seahawk accountant. You know him as Zorn76 on SeahawkBlue.com. We know him as Mark.
Hello, everybody. And there is absolutely no stat that explains Kaepernicking. And Panther fans are already bemoaning that fact as they've flown out there. So
No stat in the world can describe Kaepernicking.
Well, maybe 666.
Oh, nice.
Very nice. He'll always be number 2. We're interested in getting this playoff edition show started as soon as possible. So let's go ahead and run over what the format of this show actually is. The 12th Man Fan Jam show is divided into 4 quarters and 2 2-minute warnings, just like a real NFL football game. In the first quarter, Will catch us up on all the news that we may have missed because we were too anxious about the upcoming Seahawk game. In the second quarter, we usually talk about the game last week, but of course there was no game. So we're going to talk about the games last weekend and things that have happened in Seahawk Nation and how it affects our team this week. Halftime this week is a special Moses interview with the return of Cajun Man. Yes, you thought Cajun Man 1 was funny. Wait till you hear Moses interview Cajun Man the second time. Guaranteed fun had by all. I hear some snickering.
No, not at all. I had a cough. Sorry.
Cajun Man.
Cajun Man.
Cajun Man. The third quarter will be our own Statsman Mark giving us all the info we need for the upcoming game. And the fourth quarter will be spent with our predictions and prognostications about the upcoming game between your Seattle Seahawks and the New Orleans Saints. But before we turn it over to Will, I want to make an announcement. We are still asking all listeners to participate in voting for the first annual 12th Man Fan Jam season-ending Seahawk Awards Show, or the Fan Jammies for short. All you have to do is let us know who you think deserve the awards listed on your screen right now. There's Offensive Player of the Year, Defensive Player of the Year, Assistant Coach of the Year, Seahawk Touchdown of the Year, and Seahawk Game of the Year. And we've already had a number of votes, and we're going to tally them for a while. So how do you vote? It's real simple. Send us an email to the address on the screen right now. Or comment below the video either on the YouTube screen or on the thread you find this video on. It's just that easy. We're going to tally the votes all the way through the Super Bowl. And after the Super Bowl, we'll have a special first annual 12th Man Fan Jam season-ending Seahawk Award show where winners will be announced and fun will be had by all. So get excited by that. We are.
Awesome.
Yes, we're all excited.
Ooh.
You can
Yes.
also, if you're on the Twitter, you can also let me know your votes by Twitter if you want to. I'm at Matt War, MattWoor. Will also be on your screen.
Yes, at Matt War. And also at Seahawk Positivity. We will also have a reminder every week. And we've been getting a lot of votes. So you can send us emails if you don't want to vote. Send us emails. Let us know what you think of this show. Just, say hi. You like us, you hate us, whatever. We aren't too proud to beg. We just like the attention. Okay. Enough of that. We got a lot to talk about. So let's get started with news. Yes, with news from around the NFL world because you were too busy thinking about those New Orleans Saints. The Shadow Hawk knows. And that's Will. Will, what you got for us this evening?
Well, Moses, actually, let me start off with a question. If you're an NFL player, do you think it's a bad sign if your owner is talking about how much he wishes he drafted somebody else?
That's like being married and having your wife saying, I wish I had dated him.
Well, Bengals quarterback Andy Dalton is finding himself in that situation after turning the ball over 3 times in the second half of their playoff loss last week. Mike Brown, news has broken that Bengals owner Mike Brown really wanted Cincinnati to draft Colin Kaepernick in the second round of the 2011 NFL draft. The man who overrode him was former Bengals offensive coordinator and new Washington Redskins head coach Jay Gruden, who wanted Andy Dalton because he, quote, fits what I want to do, unquote.
Yeah, give the ball away.
I guess. But it gets even better because it was reported in October of 2011 that Brown also preferred Patriots backup quarterback Ryan Mallett to Andy Dalton.
Oh.
So it seems like the Bengals owner wants anybody but the guy he has starting at quarterback for him. Not good.
Did anyone watch that game? The Bengals game?
Yes.
I did. I was shocked. I don't know if the Chargers were just that good or the Bengals just stunk that badly, but sheesh.
They stunk. It was just an awful game.
Yeah, they look terrible.
I don't think a Bengal fan would tell you that wasn't unusual what happened with Andy Dalton. In fact, all year I have a lot of Bengal fan friends since I'm over here in the Midwest and grew up just outside of Cincinnati. So I have a lot of friends that are Bengal fans, and all year they lamented, oh, here we go again, Andy Dalton throwing the ball away. Oh, here we go again, another interception. I mean, this was all year, so I wasn't surprised because I had heard them complain about it all year. So, but I know I know he was somebody that we all kind of hinted, gee, it'd be nice to have Andy Dalton with our first round or second round pick the year he came out, and I think we all kind of feel a little better about that, Will, don't we?
Yeah, just a bit.
Oh, it's Mike Brown. That is like marrying somebody and going, I just wish I had married her instead.
Well, it turns out now I think he has like 1 career touchdown in the playoffs and 8 picks in the postseason.
Oh God.
Yeah.
It's got to be a record, though, isn't it?
Yeah.
Oh,
They would have been better off with Timothy Dalton.
Yes, they
but-
Well, yeah, the Bond himself.
Well,
But
I don't know. I mean, San Diego sure kicked the living daylights out of Cincy.
Oh,
Nice.
Oh, you're killing me.
Nice.
Oh, my-
But we have a license to kill.
Woo!
Oh.
Oh, the rim shot's gone. He passed out, man. We've already used it too much already.
Never say never.
No.
Sorry.
Timothy, last week it was Tony Orlando and Don. This week it's Timothy Dalton references.
Well, it's got to be something.
It
That is
does.
something, isn't it, really?
It
It
always.
doesn't bode well for the Skins, though, does it? Doesn't bode well for the Washington Redskins, though, to have Jay Gruden. He clearly doesn't really have much of a clue about quarterbacks.
Well, it doesn't bode well for the Redskins to have Daniel Snyder as owner. I mean, let's just
Yeah.
Right.
let's just call it like it is.
Or RG3, yeah.
Yeah, Jay's gonna have to get his brother John to be the muscle. If he's getting pushed around too much.
RG3 and 13.
Ouch.
Good Lord.
Woo. Well, I think we beat Andy Dalton to the ground pretty good.
Yeah, that's like
What else
It's
you
like
got,
four-
Will?
it's like
Let's
four
beat
bullies
somebody
in a
else to the ground.
playground.
Bring the next one. Let's beat them to the ground.
It's 4 bullies in a playground.
Well, we do. There is another player in the NFL who actually had a very good season last year, and that was Deshaun Jackson, Eagles wide receiver, and who will be watching the rest of the playoffs from his couch. But Jackson played well, had several big plays all year, and he believes he is entitled to a new contract. At least that's what he said on Monday. Jackson is due to earn a base salary of $10.25 million in 2014 and just under $10 million in 2015 and 2016, and apparently that's just not enough for him. But he's only 2 years into a 5-year deal, so his announcement that he thought he deserved a new one raised eyebrows. And so Jackson came out a couple of days later and basically said, "Hey, I was just answering a question.
Yeah.
The question was brought to me. I didn't bring it up," Jackson said. "Know ya info before speaking straight like that."
Wow.
Know your info.
Know your info. Or just do what Marshawn does and just doesn't talk at all.
Now you
Exactly.
wonder why he doesn't. I mean,
You
that's
know,
part of the reason right there.
here the guy went to college out here near me in Berkeley. He's a Cal Bear, and yet he's so disruptive that Eagle fans think he's a native of Philly.
Fits right in over there.
He really does.
Oh my God.
But yeah, the guy's only 2 years into a contract, and he's like, "Oh, well, let's tear it up and just give me a new one."
Well, yeah. I mean, because
Yeah, absolutely.
it's only a contract. I mean, come on.
Just a piece of paper.
And the $1 million question is, if he had played poorly, would he have negotiated down? No.
No.
Oh, NFL contracts, they're funny things. Will, what else you got for us?
Well, I actually have some news about a former Seahawk, Mike Tyson, who has had several coaching jobs after leaving Seattle, including I think he was head coach with Minnesota for a while.
He was.
And his last coaching job was offensive line coach with the Chicago Bears. Has now accepted a position as offensive line coach for the Atlanta Falcons.
All right.
This is a position they've had trouble trying to fill because it turns out Tice is their third offensive line coach in the last 4 seasons.
Wow.
Which may explain in part why they're picking in the top 5 of this year's draft.
Tice always looked to me, especially when he was coach of the Vikings, he always looked like that cop that would walk in and go, "All right, none of that funny business going on." He just kind of looked around like, "All right, I'm watching you guys." And then he'd go have a donut or something.
Yeah.
Or he'd be that teacher that said, "All right, why are you screwing around? Everybody's screwing around."
He's a PE teacher.
Yeah, now you're screwing around. I'm watching you guys screwing around. Now that's
Drop and give me 20.
But he just looked like a guy that wanted to be really authoritative, but really wasn't.
Yeah, just can't quite pull it off,
No, he can't. He just got to look like, all right, I'm going to be watching you. And then he goes off and does kind of like a Chief Wiggum kind of feel to him.
Which I don't really understand either, because the guy's big, he's tall, he looks imposing, but you don't get that feel like, okay, this is somebody I got to mind myself around.
Exactly. Like you could see him teaching, and all hell's breaking in his room. All hell's breaking loose in his room, and he's just going, "All right, knock it off. I got to make a phone call. Leave me alone."
But hey, good for Tice. It's good to see him still working.
Yeah, he's kind of bounced around a few, hasn't he?
Kind of all over the place.
Yes, he has. Well, congratulations, Mike Tyson. Congratulations on getting a really bad offensive line. So, Congratulations there.
I guess props to some temp agency in Atlanta for getting him that job.
Did you just call him Mike Tyson?
No, Mike Tyson.
Yeah, but did you just call him Mike Tyson? Because that would be a hell of an offensive coach.
I said congratulations.
No, he's
Mike
fading
Tyson.
into Bolivian.
I'm gonna mess you up if you don't block. I do a terrible Mike Tyson.
That was the worst impression ever.
Oh no, I can do a lot of really bad. I haven't done any yet.
Oh dear.
Oh dear, it's going to be one of those shows.
It's gonna be one of those shows. Yes, 15 minutes into it, we've already lost everybody, but that's okay.
Oh well, bugger 'em.
Cool,
Hey!
more show for us.
Guess what?
It's the end of the first quarter, bitches.
That's the end of the first quarter. Mercifully. With my Mike Tyson imitation. Oh my God. So if you're still listening, please hang with us. We're going to take a quick station identification, and we will be back in the second quarter. And in the second quarter, we will talk about the good and the bad, the ugly of all the events over the last couple weeks for the Seattle Seahawks. And we'll be back after this.
You're listening to the 12th Man Fan Jam on the Seahawk Positivity YouTube channel.
It's payback, Russell Wilson falling way back in the draft. Turn nothing into something, still can make that straw in the gold jump. I will spin, Rumpelstiltskin in a haystack.
And now it's time for the second quarter of the 12th Man Fan Jam. In the second quarter, we will be discussing the good, we will be discussing the bad, and we will be discussing the ugly of last week's game. Here to take you through the second quarter is once again our host, the self-appointed Reverend Moses of the St. Paul Allen Church of Seahawk Positivity.
Yes, thank you once again, Magic Voice, the 12th Man Fan Jam, and indeed, welcome to the second quarter, where we talk about the good, the bad, and the ugly, usually of the week game from before, or the game before this week. I don't know. So get anagrams. But anyway, what we usually do is talk about the last game the Seahawks played. Well, we talked about that last week, and they didn't play last week. So we're going to talk a little bit good, bad, ugly of what happened over the last couple of weeks since the Seahawks were gone. Of course, there were a couple wild card games that were played, and there have been a couple of good things that have happened in Seahawk Nation since they beat the Rams 27-9 to end the season. So let's start with the good, and we'll start with Mark. Mark, what is some good that's happened to the Seahawks?
Well, the most obvious and probably the most rewarding is that Percy Harvin will be playing, which is just a little golf clap there.
Yay!
Yeah, I mean,
So clap him in.
that is the the Rams will do that from home. I just that's the best news, and along with we were talking earlier about Luke Wilson, amazing recovery, because
Yes.
boy, it looked bad with the splinted being carted off, and to have both of them back is is huge, but especially Harvin, because he just changes everything. Even if he's a decoy, which he'll be more than that, but if he lines up a receiver, or when he lines up a receiver, it's a huge advantage, along with his kickoff returns, which hopefully he may not see many of anyway.
Right. The kids dig it. The kids dig Harvin being back. The kids dig Wilson being back. Will, what kind of impact do you think Harvin's going to have in this game, real quick?
Well, we saw against the Vikings, just him being on the field, that he drew coverage over to himself. So even when he wasn't catching passes, he was getting, other guys were getting. Hey, Moses, sorry to interrupt. We just got a breaking news tweet from our old buddy Mike Silver.
Mike Silver, if you're joining us, occasionally gives us news-breaking tweets, and Mike Silver has apparently come up with a new news-breaking tweet.
Hello.
Okay, according to Silver's unnamed source with the New Orleans Saints, the Saints are trying to prepare for the Seahawks by having a cardboard cutout of Percy Harvin on their field.
Nice.
Very, very cool. Michael Silver. Percy Harvin is back. Instant impact player for the Seahawks. And, of course, we have Luke Wilson, which to me was a shocker that he was going to play, because, like you said, I thought he was done. And the fact that he is going to be probable is huge news to me with the 2 and 3 tight end sets. Great news for us from Luke Wilson. Let's press on to the bad from last week or so. And there wasn't a whole lot of bad in Seahawk Nation, other than the fact there was a lot of controversy over Marshawn Lynch getting fined by not talking to the media.
Yeah,
And
stupid fine.
a lot of people chipped in and was going to pay it for him, and his fine has not been overturned from what I understand. It's just been put on hold and said, okay, look, we're not going to fine you now, but if you refuse to speak from here on out, we'll double it.
Yeah.
So it's kind of been overturned, but not really. He won't have to pay the fine right now, and hopefully he won't have to pay the fine the rest of the year. But
it's odd. It's just odd. It's one of those, for me, I mean, we don't have this sort of, we will fine your players lots of money if they don't talk to the press over it. So if in soccer, for example, over here, in football over here, you wouldn't get that. If a player wants to speak to the press, a player speaks to the press. That's just the way it goes. The NFL seems to want to be in the pocketbooks, the checkbooks of the players.
Yeah.
More than it wants to regulate its refereeing, more than it wants to, get the rules right, more than it wants to make the game watchable and enjoyable by fans around the world.
Mm-hmm.
But it definitely wants to be in the back pockets of all the players for which it's supposed to be paying. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's spending far too much time regulating the behavior of players. It's not a police force. It's not a state. It should just worry about the game. Deal with the game.
But that being said, my view on it is this. He knows that that's a rule, and he knows that he's supposed to do it, even though it's stupid. I agree it's stupid, but it's also stupid for me to go 55 down the highway. But if I don't go 55, I should get a ticket. And so from that standpoint, I think the rules should be looked at as a whole, but I also think that Marshawn knew that rule and didn't do it and faced the consequences.
I'm not going to sit here and say that he should be fined just because he broke a rule. You're quite right. The rule is there. What I'm saying is the rule is completely ridiculous.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, why do we have to have Marshawn Lynch talking to the media? We've got Richard Sherman. He talks enough for any three players.
I'm surprised they haven't fined Richard Sherman for talking too bloody much, especially in the blogs that he puts out, where he criticizes the NFL every single time and says, they're not looking after player interests or their rules are crap, or do you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. He's really, really critical of the NFL. I'm surprised they haven't fined him £50,000 for daring to speak out against bloody, the commissioner.
Yeah, and I think
another thing. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
No,
Moses.
Please go ahead, Will.
Oh, it's just you mentioned the $50,000. I mean, the size of Marshawn Lynch's fine, $50,000 or $100,000 if he stops talking. I mean, Kendall Langford for his little temper tantrum against the Seahawks in the Rams game 2 weeks ago got fined $7,875. Marshawn Lynch has been fined for more than that wearing Skittles on his shoes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So it's just strange. I mean, and $50,000 for not talking, or $100,000 if he doesn't talk from here on out.
But it just brings the NFL. For me, it just brings the NFL becomes a bit of a joke.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know what I mean? That
yes.
It's got more fines for the most ridiculous things. You're wearing the wrong color cleats, take 10,000 off. You haven't spoken to the press, take 50,000 off. Your dreadlocks are too long. You're this, you're that. I mean, for crying out loud, get the game right. Worry about the game.
Right. Thank you. I agree. Yeah. I agree with that. And I hope that they do something about it in the off season, or I hope the Players Association says, you know what, this is ridiculous. We don't need to have this. That would be my hope for that. But that's really the only bad I could think of was the fact that we had everybody coming back from injuries. Even KJ Wright was running last week, even though he's not going to play. Everybody's coming back, healing up. So that was great. We're playing the number 6 seed, which is the Saints, instead of the number 3 seed. So I think that's pretty awesome. The only bad thing, nitpicking, would be that.
But what about Dan Quinn and the interest shown by, who was it again? Titans,
yeah.
Yeah.
What do we think of that?
That would be bad, but he's not gone yet.
No, I'm less worried about the defensive side losing a person, because Pete Carroll's a defensive guy.
Yeah.
So if we lose, I hate to say, I mean, I don't want to lose Dan Quinn. No, of course not. But when you're 13-3, and if they go as far as we think they're going to go, you expect to get poached, because that's what happened. It happened in New England. When New England won their Super Bowls, it seemed like they lose a coordinator or two every year after they won a Super Bowl. And that just is part of the game, unfortunately.
But isn't there, for me, I just think there's a point to say here that if a team is still involved in this season, okay, I accept that the Titans were crap and they're not involved in anything, but if you are a team that's still on the road to Super Bowl, still getting in with a chance to win it, the NFL again. See, this is where I think it gets its rules sort of asked about face. Should turn around and say, do you know what? Nobody looks for a new coach. Nobody starts all this nonsense about speaking to other teams. Coaches or speaking to other teams, assistant coaches, until such times as the Super Bowl is finished. Then it's open season. Yeah. Because what you're doing is you're adding distractions, which don't need to be there for our team at the moment. Thank you very much.
I agree.
Don't need it.
Yeah. Although that does play into something else too. It's just another incentive for Seattle to go as far as they can, because if they can get to the Super Bowl and win it, that's another 3-4 weeks. Tennessee might say, look, okay, we need to get somebody in here and hire somebody else. That may not be their first choice. So the longer Seattle can keep playing, the better the chance that we'll keep guys like Quinn or Darryl.
Yeah, true. But I mean, really, what it's doing though is just increasing the wage bracket that these coaches will get, because if they end up becoming Super Bowl winning coaches, then they can command more from the teams that they're interested in. I don't think that's going to make a great difference. I just think that the NFL needs to say, actually, do you know what? I know you other teams were all crap this year. Really sorry about that. But you just have to shut up now and let the teams that were actually reasonably good this year finish off this season, finish off the Super Bowl, and then we can worry about how you're going to manage your crappy asses back to the, later. I just find it a massive unnecessary distraction.
Yeah, I agree.
Well,
Mark?
I just was going to say, Quinn's done a great job. There's no question. But one way or another, these things work themselves out. And, it's just like a changing cast, and it's almost similar to one of Moses' favorite shows, like an SNL cast change. The shows suffer, and then they get someone in there, and they're just as good, if not better, and it just works itself out.
It worked okay for New England. They were losing 1 or 2 coordinators a year after winning their Super Bowls, and they were right back where they were before. And especially on the defensive side, where I think Carroll has a large hand in that, I feel a little bit better about that side than the other side. Although I love what Dan Quinn's done. Not surprised. Knew coming in he was going to be a great defensive coach, and not surprised that he's doing as well as he's doing. So we'll see. We'll see how that works out. Ugly from last week. We had a little bit of ugly, or did we?
Oh, we did all right.
Will, what kind of ugly we got?
Well, Jim Harbaugh. Enough said. No. Did you see Harbaugh? I mean, the man proved that the whole layering thing could be overdone, because he had the pants, he had the jacket, and he must have had about 6 pairs of long johns, 10 sweaters. The guy looked like the Stay Puft Marshmallow Man under all those.
But he was doing the game from the polar vortex.
Yeah, whatever.
He was still whining that he was cold.
Yeah.
He's Jim Harbaugh. He whines about everything.
Whining. And
that was just an ugly game anyway.
And they won.
Yeah, that was a waste.
Yeah, that's ugly.
They celebrated beating a team who was, 8-7-1?
Yep, by a field goal.
Yeah. So that was an ugly game. Very ugly game. And it was ugly seeing Harbaugh dressed up like a polar bear. I agree with that. Of course, it's just ugly seeing Harbaugh anyway. So
yeah.
Holy shit, it's halftime.
All right, that looks like that's the end of the second quarter. So we will take a station identification. We will take a halftime break. We will go into the locker room. We will take a couple drinks, work on a game plan, make some halftime adjustments, and we will come out in the second half swinging and talking about the game that's coming up tomorrow, or today if you're listening to this on Saturday, between your Seattle Seahawks and the New Orleans Saints.
You're listening to the 12th Man Fan Jam on the Seahawk Positivity YouTube channel.
So, take off to the Great White North. Beauty. Take off. It's a beauty way to go. Jeez. Take off, you hosers.
Hey, it's Matt, and you're listening to the 12th Man Fan Jam. Next, the 12th Man Fan Jam presents another interview with Moses.
Yes, and welcome again to Halftime Interviews with Moses. We're lucky to have with us a very special return guest this week. He's a lifelong Saints fan, and we're honored to have him return to our show. He is Cajun Man. Cajun Man, welcome back to the 12th Man Fan Jam.
Salutation, 12th Man Nation.
Yes, you appreciate that we have you on the show again. What have you been up to since you were on our show a couple of months ago?
Occupation.
Oh, you've been working hard at your job. What's your job again?
Interpretation.
Ah, you interpret for other Cajuns, I see. Hey, I hear you and your wife are back together again.
Reconciliation.
Well, good. I'm so glad to hear that. Now, I'd like to ask you a couple questions if I could.
Interrogation.
Thank you. Now, refresh us a little bit. Last time your Saints came to play in Seattle, it didn't work out for you very well, did it?
Humiliation.
Yeah, I'll say humiliation. I mean, what'd you do after the game?
Inebriation.
Ah, yeah, drank a little.
Incarceration.
Uh-oh. Did you get arrested?
Probation.
Phew. Lucky break. Good for you. Well, I'm glad it wasn't jail time. Hey, the Saints have reached the playoffs once again this year, but they had to make it in as a wild card. Why do you think that is?
Division.
Well, I do agree with that. You have a pretty tough division this season.
Competition.
And your schedule wasn't the easiest, that's true. You've had some injuries, too.
Tribulation.
Well, that's a shame, but, you know, it is part of the game. So how do you think Drew Brees will do this time in Seattle?
Interceptions.
Oh, interceptions. Yeah, he probably will have some interceptions. I agree. Why do you think he'll have interceptions?
Miscommunication.
The communication between the quarterback and receiver, always important. What do you think of the noise that the 12th man is capable of making when the Saints will be on the field?
Commotion.
Well, it is quite a commotion they stir up out there.
Disruption.
Yes, they can be very disruptive.
Distraction.
Well, they can certainly be a distraction as well. As far as the Seahawks on the field, what kind of day do you think they need from their offense?
Production.
They certainly need to produce touchdowns. That's true. How about on defense?
Intimidation.
Yes, they need to set the tone with intimidation very early. I agree. You know, the Seahawks are heavy favorites this week, but what would happen if the Saints actually lost to the Seahawks?
Frustration. Aggravation.
I understand your frustration and aggravation there. What about your coach, Coach Payton? How do you feel about him if they lose?
Termination.
Wow. Well, don't you think that's a little rough to fire your coach after making the playoffs?
Fabrication.
You were just telling a little lie, making a little fabrication. Well, do you have a prediction for the game?
Prediction.
Yes, a prediction for the game.
End of Saints season.
End of the season for the Saints. Well, I hope you're correct, Cajun Man. And good luck this Saturday.
12th Man Nation.
And that was Cajun Man.
You're listening to the 12th Man Fan Jam, and that was another interview from Moses. I'm joined by Shango. Shango, what did you think of Moses' interview?
This was pathetic. It was embarrassing. It was one of the worst performances I've seen in my life.
Okay. Thanks, Shango. Thank you. Can somebody get him out of my room, please? Okay, thanks. Moses, back over to you.
And I'm going to be okay.
He's the stat man. He's the stat man. And here's our very own stat man. Here's Mark.
Yes, thank you, Matt, and welcome back to the 12th Man Fan Jam. Start of the second half is usually when we talk to our Statsman Mark about stats for the upcoming game. He has the stats for the upcoming game between your Seattle Seahawks and the New Orleans Saints. He is the Statsman Mark. Mark, what you got for us this evening?
Hey, everybody. Stats and parts are parts. And let's see, for the visiting New Orleans Saints. Regular season, kind of end of the year stats for them. First off, passing offense, as you'd imagine, they finished second, 25th in rushing offense. Although they did much better last week in Philly. We'll talk about that in a bit. Defensively, they're second versus the pass and 19th versus the run. Drew Brees, typical year, 5,162 yards, 39 touchdowns, only 12 picks, and 68.6%, which is even higher than I would have thought for him. Let's see, running the ball, Pierre Thomas, who I think is, well, we'll get to that later too. That isn't my thing, is it? Anyway, Pierre Thomas, 549 yards, 3.7 a carry and 2 touchdowns. Mark Ingram, 386 yards, 4.9 a carry and 1 TD. And let's see, our old friend Jimmy Graham, 86 catches, 1,215 yards, 16 touchdowns. And Marcus Colson, who I didn't hear much about this year, but he still had 75 catches, a little under 1,000 yards, and 5 TDs. So there's the Saints offense for the end of the year.
So 25th against a run, you say?
Yes, 25th
for the
versus
run.
rushing.
Yeah. Which is
Or that's their offense, 25th rushing offense, 19th versus the run defensively.
We're going to have a massive rainstorm on Saturday, is my understanding.
Yep.
And they're not going to be able to run the ball very well.
I don't know how much they're going to be able to do well at all.
Yeah.
I think it really affects their kind of passing game. Breeze it's timing and precision, and with 25-mile-an-hour winds and rain, I just think it'll be tough there.
The other problem they've got is their way in which is the way in which they communicate with their offensive lines by holding up boards and cards, and they don't do all of the helmet radio mic stuff. So I don't know, and with the noise as well, with that, the weather, it's going to be difficult for them.
It is going to be very difficult for them. How about defense? I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
I was like, how about Mark? How about defensively? What do they look like?
Oh, right back to me. Yeah. I was just going to say that we know those earplugs don't work.
Last in the league in earplug effectiveness. Yes.
Yeah, those were mailed back to Brett Favre or whoever recommended them. So let's see. Defensively, a couple of things stick out. As a team, they only had 12 interceptions. And their opponents had 12, so they're a wash there. They're actually 0 for giveaway takeaway, so I guess it could be worse. But they're a team historically who used to feast off of turnovers when they were doing really well in the playoffs.
Right.
They do have 49 sacks as a team defensively, and they've only given up 37, so they're plus 12 there, and that's a pretty good number.
Yeah.
And conversely, Seattle had 44, and we gave up 44, so we're even. Let's see, a couple defensive guys. Cameron Jordan has 12 and a half sacks. He had 1.5 last week in the game in Philly. Junior Gallette's a linebacker, 12 sacks. And Keenan Lewis, who I think is going to play, and he has 4 picks. So, defensively, again, they're great versus the pass, but 19th versus the run.
Which again, Will, in this weather is not going to be a big advantage.
No, I mean you got a dome team, a team. They actually remind me a lot of the 2005 Seahawks, just in how it's a rhythm offense. It's a more of a finesse offense, and the wind and the rain and the Legion of Boom and all of that's just gonna make things difficult for them. I really believe that.
I wouldn't count them out, though. I mean, you just can't, can you? It's Drew Brees.
Well, granted. I mean, the guy's one of the best quarterbacks in the league.
Well, some other stat that I've noticed about this team coming in that I think are important is how they do on the road. And they have beaten 3 teams on the road this whole year. They beat Tampa Bay by 2 points beginning of the year. They beat Chicago by 8 points, which isn't bad. They beat Atlanta 17-13, but since we beat them, including us, they lost their last 3 road games against what I would consider decent competition: Seattle, St. Louis, and Carolina. And of course, they did win in Philadelphia. But before you get excited about that, Philadelphia was 4-4 at home, and they made a big deal on the TV about how Nick Foles was a much better quarterback on the road than he was at home.
Mm-hmm.
So I think this is not the big competition everyone's looking at. But how did they do in that game, by the way, Mark?
Well, for Breeze, he had a very, pretty subpar performance. I mean, he was 20 out of 30 passing, but 250 yards, 1 touchdown, and 2 interceptions, and a quarterback rating of 75. So, Nick Foles actually outplayed him. And keep in mind, this is a rookie QB, first ever playoff game.
Right.
2 touchdowns for him, 23 out of 33, no interceptions. So, Foles actually played better.
He did.
But
what was the weather like? I didn't actually see that game.
Well, I mean, I think it was in I don't know if it was in the it was under 40 for sure. I don't know if it was in the 30s or high 20s, but there wasn't really any kind of like inclement weather in terms of snow or rain.
No, but it was cold. I think we're joined by Andy now. Andy, are you there?
I am, guys, and I really apologize.
That's all right. We'll take you when we can get you, bro. Hey, did you
All
watch
right.
the game between the Eagles and the Saints?
I watched some of it. I can't say I watched all of it. But I did watch some.
What were your thoughts on the game about the Saints? Are you scared, or were you thinking, they barely made it?
Well, they're not playing Philadelphia this week, so I don't know about scared. But it's a team that you can't underestimate, especially in the playoffs. Right? Any team with Drew Brees behind center, you don't know what you're going to get, right? So I hope that hope 12th man. I hope the Seahawks don't look at December 2nd and think, this is going to be a cakewalk, because this is going to be a tough game.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Well, the
totally.
Saints, any playoff team deserves, and we know that from a few years ago, being 7-9 and winning the division, and everyone kind of throwing us out,
Yeah.
and saying, well, we can still, it was down to 6 teams. Any of those 6 have a chance. There's no doubt about it. I think we have a massive home field advantage, where I think some teams get as many as 3 or 4 points. I think, honestly, in my opinion, you're talking 5 or 6 points in our case, and I just don't see anybody being 6 points better than us right now. But that's another discussion for another time. What other stats do you have for us, Mark?
Well, the key for that game in Philly for the Saints is that they had 185 yards rushing as a team and 5.1 a carry. And they were led by Mark Ingram, 18 carries, 97 yards, and a touchdown, and a 5.4 average. And the time of possession was heavy in their favor, 34 minutes, 53 seconds versus 25 minutes and 7 seconds for Philly. And yet the Eagles almost won that game.
Yeah.
So
that's a great telling sign as well.
I mean, I think the thing for us is that we mustn't. It's our offense that needs to turn up. Really, I know. I'm pretty sure that our defense is going to turn up. I don't have any feeling that they won't. It's my offense. It's the offense that worries me. And I think if we try and go through this game, not really scoring until with the second half, or just accepting field goals rather than punching it in at the end when we get down there, especially if the defense is taking away interceptions, and we're just getting 3 points from that, I don't think that's going to be enough. I think we've got to have a balanced, all phases of the game played properly.
Totally agree with that.
Yeah,
we gotta limit the explosive plays from New Orleans, and we've got to take advantage of the opportunities that we are going to have tomorrow. Simple as that.
So, guys, you guys talked a little bit about extreme weather. I'm curious what your thoughts are there on who does that really advantage the most? Is it a wash? No pun intended, of course, but do we benefit more because if it's raining? And I know the media always talks about it always rains in Seattle. We know that's not the case, but who really benefits the most if the weather is as bad as some say it's supposed to be?
Who wants to answer? Matt, you want to take that on?
I think it's got to be us, because they're a dome team. So in terms of weather, it's not something that they have to really deal with down there themselves very often. They only deal with the weather for half of their games every year. So I think it's got to benefit us. They're also a passing team. And if the wind is up, the rain is up, it's going to make the ball more difficult to catch. I don't know. I think it's got to, and we've got obviously Marshawn Lynch, we've got the Turbinator and all that going on. So I think it has to benefit us.
Yeah, that's kind of where I'm at. It's not so much that Seattle is used to playing in the rain as much as the kind of team they are, the physical running on offense and the physical in your face on defense. I think those are the kind of teams that win these type of games. And so I think that's why it's an advantage for us. Not so much because they play in Seattle and they're used to it, as much as this kind of team wins these games.
Yeah, no, that's a valid point. And I think one wild card is that when the weather gets extreme, that's when weird things happen, and we need to be on the positive side of those weird things.
Yes.
Right? Like,
absolutely.
Shanked punts and fumbles, and we need to win the turnover game regardless of the weather. But it's that weird weather that brings out the weird plays.
It definitely does.
And with the wind, it's going to affect the kicking game too. So you get into a situation where normally it's like, okay, you're going to attempt a 45, 50-yard field goal. Situations like this tomorrow during this game, teams are going to probably go for it.
Yeah, right.
And that worries me a little bit, because I was watching a bit of the the Seahawks-Rams game, and we weren't real good on third down, huh?
That's a good point. Matt, what kind of injuries are we looking at going into tomorrow's game?
Well, there's not much to write about really on this one. I take the stats, or I'll take the injury stats, always from the official websites of the teams because I normally get a better understanding than I do from NFL.com. The Saints haven't listed any of the game statuses of any of those that are listed as injured, so I don't know necessarily whether they're questionable, probable, or otherwise. But Pierre Thomas, Keenan Lewis, Akeem Hicks with ankle, Jahari Evans with ankle, and Teron Armstead with knee. None of those missed any practice, though, apart from Pierre Thomas, who missed practice on Wednesday. But as far as the other practice is concerned, they turned up for all of them. So I could only really assume that they're probables. Yeah. From our side, obviously KJ Wright, we know about that. Foot injury, obviously not going to be playing. Luke Wilson with an ankle, he is probable. Chris Maragos is questionable with a back injury and has not practiced all week. Jordan Hill is doubtful. Percy Harvin obviously is now probable. I have concerns. I know you spoke about this earlier when we did the good, bad, and ugly. I still have concerns about Percy Harvin, only because I don't know whether he is as game ready as we hope he will be. So he's missed an awful lot of game time, and whilst he did have that short stint in the Minnesota game, I don't know necessarily whether that was fluke more than anything, or whether the fact that he was playing his old team. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And Cam Chancellor, and Cam is probable though, but he didn't practice on Wednesday.
So Andy, should we be concerned about Percy Harvin? Everyone's excited, but should we be kind of guarded with our optimism and say this guy hasn't played in a while and maybe he's not the same Percy that we're looking for, or should we just be excited?
You know what? I don't usually get caught up in the hype and all that kind of stuff, but everything I've read and seen, the Seahawks are excited as can be about getting Percy on the field tomorrow. So, Pete Carroll's got nothing but great things to say. Russell Wilson is excited to have him. So I'm predicting that weather deterrent here, maybe, right? Maybe the weather cuts into this, but if there's breaks in the weather, I think Percy Harvin's going to put on a show. I really do.
Yeah, I'm kind of feeling that way too. If you get the chance on YouTube, there is a Percy Harvin highlight reel from 2012 that you should watch. And my son and I sat and watched it yesterday. And wow, you want to talk about getting excited about seeing a guy in your uniform. Watch that video and you'll get excited. Will, should we be excited or should we tone our excitement about Percy?
Well, actually, Moses, we just got another breaking news tweet from Mike Silver.
A breaking news tweet from Michael Silver.
According to Michael Silver's unnamed source with the New Orleans Saints, the Saints are attempting to prepare for tomorrow's game by installing large fans and sprinklers on their practice field.
Now, can I just? That's great. I love Mike Silver. He's always so on finger on the pulse. The logo that they painted in the middle of their practice field. Why would you do that? What does the logo signify? What does that do to help your team in a noisy situation?
I think someone's nervous.
Something pretty to look at. I mean, they apparently blew up 2 speakers, didn't they, trying to replicate the noise at CenturyLink Field. I just give up and just turn up and just play football. So far, they've done what have they done? They've done earpieces. They've done paint the logo on the field. They've blown up 2 speakers. The only thing they haven't done is won a game there. So none of this shit is working, to be honest.
That's a good point. In fact,
you feeling we're in their heads a little bit?
I think we are. And in fact, I see. Will, I think I see a news breaking tweet from Michael Silver myself.
And he's busy tonight.
Michael Silver reported an unnamed source has told him that Saint coach Sean Payton is petitioning the NFL this evening to move tomorrow's playoff game into Key Arena if there's bad weather. So.
I bet Jim Harbaugh would try that too.
I bet he would too. I bet there are a couple people that are fans of the 49ers that would write a petition about that too.
Hey, we'll just play on Sunday if the weather's not good enough tomorrow, you know? Alice, if it's good enough for Super Bowl, it's good enough for divisional round.
There you go. Oh, it's going to be fine. It's just not going to be New Orleans weather.
It's the end of the third quarter, bitches.
And that is the end of the third quarter. with our stats. Mark, we thank you very much.
Yeah, I was just going to say real quick that even though Sean Payton's a bearer for detail, he left off the 34-7 score underneath our logo in the practice.
Always leaving one more. Medic Matt, thank you for your medical advice.
Welcome.
Take the gloves off and take a quick break. Station identification, and we will be back.
You're listening to the 12th Man Fan Jam on the Seahawk Positivity YouTube channel.
Attention, please. There is an emergency in this building. Please evacuate all areas of the building immediately. Do not delay to collect personal items, and do not use the lifts.
And now it's time for the fourth quarter of the 12th Man Fan Jam. Here to lead us through the final quarter is once again our host, the self-appointed Reverend Moses of the St. Paul Allen Church of Seahawk Positivity.
Yes, thank you once again, Magic Voice of the 12th Man Fan Jam. It is indeed the fourth quarter of our special playoff edition of the 12th Man Fan Jam. And the game on Saturday, Seahawks, Saints. We give you a prediction. We give you a prognostication. We put it all together. And a 2-minute warning, we play my favorite game, which is bigger. But before we get there, let's start with Matt. Matt, you got a score, a prediction, and a prognostication for me on this game?
Yep, I've got a score for you. I think the score is going to be Seahawks 13, Saints 10. I'm not expecting big numbers in terms of the scoreline, just because of the weather and everything that we've already covered. As far as procrastinations are concerned, I think what will I go with? I'll go with Marshawn Lynch, and I think that he will run over 110 yards. 1 TD.
And 1 TD. 1 TD, 110 yards. All right, very, very good. Mark.
Yes.
Need a prediction and prognostication.
Well, I've spent the last week or so spamming several different Seahawk forums.
Many Seahawk foremen.
But I tell you, anyway, so my score all week, and I'll stick with it, is 37-20 Seahawks. And I just, for some reason, I see this as the total being up there, even though the rain and the wind wouldn't suggest it. But anyway, that's my score. And for my, let's see, who's going to step up here? I think our backup linebacker, Malcolm Smith, has been doing really well, and I think the Saints are going to have to shorten up their passing game, and I think there's going to be a deflection or some kind of, maybe a tip ball at the line, and I think Smith is going to get an interception.
All right, Malcolm Smith with an INT. Well done, Will.
Well, I'm thinking it's going to be 27-17 Seahawks. I think it'll be a classic Seahawks 2013 Seahawks game where it's tight in the first half and then we pull away in the fourth quarter. As for my prognostication, I've actually got a similar one from Mark, but I think it's time to spread the wealth amongst the linebackers. I think Bobby Wagner not only gets an interception, I think he gets a pick six tomorrow. Ooh. Or today if you're listening to this on Saturday.
Today, tomorrow. or the other day. Or sometime in the future. Who knows? Well, I know I've heard all week about how this is going to be a close game and everyone's looking for a close game and, oh, look out. This isn't what happened to December 2nd. But I will tell you all that I've only had 3 times I've had this feeling that I have about this game. The first one was the first game against San Francisco when I told everybody it was going to be a blowout and everyone thought I was nuts. The second time was the Saints when they came in December when I said it was going to be a blowout and everyone said I was nuts. Well, guess what? I got that feeling again this weekend. It's going to be a blowout. 27-10. It's not going to be pretty. Nuts. And I'm going to go with my prognostication, which is I believe that Percy Harvin will find the end zone twice and have an amazing impact on this game, even with the wind, even with the rain. Remember, they can line him up at running back at times, and I would love to see that, by the way. If you watch that highlight reel, they line him up at running back, they line him up at flanker, they line him up everywhere. So I would not be surprised that a couple times they bring him in on third down as that running back and let him do some things by giving him the ball as many different ways as they can. And I certainly hope that the screens, the wide receiver screens that we always talk about in here, and 1 or 2 a game, I hope we see a lot more of that if number 11's out there on the field. So 27-10 is my prediction and prognostication.
Well, I think you're nuts.
Well, there's a long list of people you can join.
Holy shit, it's a 2-minute warning.
And now we're at the 2-minute warning. And the 2-minute warning is my favorite game. I get to ask the 12th Man Fan Jam group here, which is bigger? Yes, which is bigger? And the question this week is, and we'll start with Matt. Matt, which is bigger?
Which is bigger?
The amount of times Drew Brees gets sacked or the amount of times he throws interceptions?
That's a good one. I think it's going to be... See, I would have said it was going to be even at 2 each, but okay, if I have to pick for one, I'm going to go for his interceptions.
Okay.
But I actually think it's going to be 2 of each.
Well, you say 2 of each. Okay, I'll put that down. Mark, which is bigger?
Which is bigger? Well, you know what? I'm reading the message board, and can you repeat the question?
Which is bigger?
Focus, man. Focus.
Drew Brees.
Oh, my goodness.
I'm in the polar vortex. Save me.
It's hot down in California.
Oh, my God. Minus 50 this week, guys. I have not been in school all week. Doesn't hurt my feelings at all. Mark, which is bigger?
Yes.
The amount of times Drew Brees gets sacked or the amount of interceptions Drew Brees throws?
I think we're going to step up the sacks. So I'm going to say sacks this time. I'd like to say picks. They're both good. Picks, I guess, would be better, but I think it'll be sacks. So.
Do you want to give us a number, or do you want to dare?
Boy, wow. Yeah. Oh, a number. Okay. Let's see. I will say 3. 3 sacks.
3 sacks. All right.
And a partridge in a pear tree. No, in all fairness, I was typing something to Andy. I told him, "Oh, give us a score and all this," and then all of a sudden I was up. So
yeah, see. Well, at least you were doing something for the company. We
I
appreciate
know my
that.
brain is still pickled.
Well,
I think our defense has just been such ball hawks lately. No pun intended. I got to go interceptions. I think we get 3. Possibly 2 interceptions and a fumble, but I think one way or another we get 3 turnovers out of Brees, especially with the weather the way it is.
All right. Yeah, I'm kind of with you on that. I think Brees is pretty elusive in the pocket, and I don't think we're getting a lot of sacks on him, but I think we will get a lot of pressures. We'll make him scramble a lot, which he's kind of Russell's kind of like him, or he's kind of like Russell in that he kind of sometimes does his best work when he's scrambling. But I think he's going to be moving around in that pocket a lot, so I don't think we're getting as many sacks as interceptions. I think it's going to be 2-1 in favor of the interceptions. But what do I know? What do we all know? We'll find out very, very soon. Speaking of soon, wow. Was that fun or what?
Absolutely.
Certainly was.
Hey, Matt, say hi to your mom for me, by the way.
I absolutely will.
Yes, please do. It was information.
Tell her to listen.
It was
educational. You wait till October.
Oh, Lord. What did we learn this week? We learned all kinds of fun stuff, didn't we?
We did. We learned that your Mike Tyson impression sounds like Bill Cosby, who's a little bit homosexual.
A gay Bill Cosby is my Mike Tyson imitation. That was the most important thing I think we learned this week.
And that Timothy Dalton would be a better quarterback for the Bengals than Andy Dalton.
Andy Dalton.
Yeah.
A lot of Timothy Dalton references tonight. It was awesome. It was fantastic. For Statsman Mark, for Newshound Will, for my partner in crime, Matt, this is your self-appointed Reverend Moses of the St. Paul Allen Church of Seahawk Positivity. Thank you so much for joining us this week. Thank you for making us part of your pregame Seahawk tradition. Thank you, Andy, for showing up occasionally this evening. And
he's still working.
He's still there. And we so much look forward to helping all of you waste over an hour of your life next week. Don't forget to vote on our awards and enjoy the game against the Saints. And go Hawks!
Go Hawks!
Go Hawks!